In the tense years following the end of the Second World War, the world seemed to breathe cautiously, aware that peace was fragile and that a new kind of conflict was silently emerging. Nations rebuilt, economies struggled, and societies attempted to return to routines that had been interrupted by years of war. Yet beneath the surface of everyday life, an invisible struggle was unfolding. The United States and the Soviet Union, former allies against a common enemy, now faced each other across a chasm of ideology, suspicion, and strategic competition. A conflict without open battles, without marching armies and overt confrontations, yet one in which the stakes were nothing less than global security. The Cold War, a term that would come to define decades of tension, was a war fought in shadows, in whispered conversations, in secret messages, and in the quiet observation of human behavior. People in cities across the world walked past one another without knowing that each encounter could hold hidden significance. A friendly smile might conceal allegiance to a foreign intelligence service. A routine purchase could serve as a coded message. Ordinary objects, mundane in appearance, often became vessels of secrecy. A book left on a park bench, a newspaper left in a particular location, a bottle of soda placed carefully on a table, could carry information vital to national security. In this delicate landscape, spies were not merely agents of foreign powers. They were masters of human psychology, skilled at understanding patterns, exploiting habits, and blending into ordinary life. By the early 1950s, the fear of nuclear confrontation, ideological subversion, and espionage had created an atmosphere in which vigilance became a necessity. The United States government, acutely aware of the Soviet Union's intelligence capabilities, invested heavily in counterintelligence. Agencies such as the Federal Bureau of Investigation, under the unrelenting direction of J. Edgar Hoover, expanded their operations beyond criminal investigation to include the surveillance of ordinary citizens suspected of ties to foreign powers. Scientists, diplomats, business people, and even artists were scrutinized. Everyone became part of a network of observation, sometimes unknowingly, as the very routines of life were analyzed for anomalies. Across the Atlantic, the Soviet Union cultivated a sophisticated intelligence apparatus designed to penetrate Western societies. Operatives were trained in patience, deception, and psychological manipulation. They learned how to live double lives, how to transmit information without raising suspicion, and how to survive in an environment where detection meant not only failure, but potential death or imprisonment. The life of a spy was one of constant calculation, of small decisions whose consequences could reverberate on an international scale. For these operatives, the ordinary world was a stage for extraordinary acts, and ordinary objects were tools that could conceal, convey, and protect secrets. Among the most remarkable operatives of this era was William Fisher, a man whose life would intertwine with some of the most dramatic episodes of the Cold War. Known to the Soviet intelligence services as Rudolf Abel, he lived quietly in New York City, working as an artist and designer. His appearance and demeanor were unremarkable. He walked the streets like any other citizen, visited local diners, and conducted transactions that appeared routine. Yet beneath this ordinary existence lay a mind trained for espionage, a discipline honed through years of meticulous preparation, and a commitment to a mission that required him to live undetected in a foreign land for extended periods. Abel's genius lay in the simplicity of his cover. He understood that in espionage, the ordinary was often the most effective disguise. While some spies relied on gadgets, codes, or elaborate schemes, Abel relied on blending in, on the careful cultivation of habits that made him predictable yet invisible. Every movement was deliberate, every interaction considered, and every routine practiced to perfection. Yet even the most disciplined operative is subject to human tendencies. Preferences, small habits, and daily routines, no matter how subtle, can provide the openings necessary for discovery. The FBI's approach to identifying spies like Abel relied on meticulous observation and pattern recognition. Intelligence officers understood that the key to uncovering clandestine activity often lay not in confrontation, but in understanding behavior. They observed how individuals navigated the city, where they chose to eat, how they carried themselves when they believed they were unobserved. Abel, despite his training, demonstrated patterns that were subtle but detectable. He frequented a particular diner at predictable times, ordered the same beverage, and carried out seemingly ordinary transactions that, to the trained eye, suggested a broader context of secret activity. A simple bottle of Coca Cola, innocuous to anyone else, became a pivotal clue. Abel's preference for the soft drink provided the FBI with a predictable anchor, a moment in time and space where his behavior could be reliably observed. In a world of coded messages and clandestine meetings, a consistent routine became a window into a spy's life. Agents positioned themselves in the diner, blending in with other patrons, watching, noting, recording. Every sip of Coca Cola, every glance, every interaction was documented and analyzed. Over weeks and months, a detailed picture emerged. Abel's ordinary habit, his comfort in the routine, allowed the FBI to gather intelligence without alerting him to their presence. Through this patient observation, the FBI was able to document a covert exchange, one that appeared mundane to any casual observer, but contained information of immense value. Abel placed a package on a table, an ordinary gesture for him, but one that revealed his operational methods. The agents monitored the interaction from multiple angles, capturing evidence that would form the foundation of a case. What is remarkable is that this operation, which required no exotic technology, no overt confrontation, relied entirely on the careful study of human behavior. The arrest itself was a masterclass in timing, precision, and discipline. Abel, calm and composed, was taken into custody without incident. The FBI's preparation ensured that every move had been anticipated, every risk mitigated. The capture revealed not only Abel's activities, but also a wider network of Soviet operatives in the United States. Subsequent interrogation and analysis of the seized documents illuminated the sophisticated and patient methods of Soviet intelligence, methods that had allowed Abel to operate undetected for years. Abel's trial became a spectacle that revealed the inner workings of espionage. Coded messages, covert meetings, and the use of ordinary objects for clandestine purposes were brought to light. The proceedings demonstrated the depth of training and professionalism of Soviet operatives, as Abel maintained composure, navigated legal questions, and minimized self-incrimination. The story did not end with the trial. In a twist of historical significance, Abel would later be exchanged for Francis Gary Powers, a U-2 pilot captured by the Soviet Union. The exchange underscored the interconnected nature of espionage, diplomacy, and global politics, illustrating how the actions of a single operative could ripple across the world stage. This narrative is more than a historical anecdote. It is a lesson in human behavior, in the value of patience, and in the extraordinary significance of the ordinary. A bottle of Coca Cola, a simple habit, became a tool that facilitated one of the most famous espionage captures in American history. Abel's story illustrates that intelligence work is not merely about gadgets and codes. It is about understanding people, interpreting routines, and exploiting predictability. Even the most disciplined operatives are subject to the patterns of human life, and these patterns can be observed, documented, and acted upon. The Cold War, often represented by grand ideological battles, nuclear arsenals, and political brinkmanship, was also a conflict defined by these small human elements. Ordinary life was intertwined with extraordinary risk. The routines of citizens, the choices of spies, and the observation by intelligence agencies created a dynamic and dangerous tapestry in which a single moment, a single action, could have consequences far beyond its immediate context. William Fisher, later known to the world as Rudolf Abel, was not born into espionage. He entered a world of intrigue through the careful planning and ambition of Soviet intelligence. Yet even from his early years, his character reflected the qualities that would make him an effective operative. Born in England to Russian parents, Fisher grew up with a sense of dual identity, navigating different cultures while maintaining an acute awareness of human behavior. This early exposure to multiple social environments taught him subtle lessons about observation, trust, and deception. He learned to watch closely, to notice small cues in gestures, expressions, and routines that revealed more than words ever could. By the time he was recruited by Soviet intelligence, Abel had already demonstrated a remarkable capacity for focus, discipline, and adaptability. The Soviets recognized his ability to assimilate into foreign environments, to appear ordinary while thinking several steps ahead of those around him. His training intensified these natural inclinations. He learned to memorize patterns, interpret behavioral clues, and execute tasks with a precision that left little room for error. Agents were drilled relentlessly in surveillance detection, coded communication, dead drop techniques, and counter-surveillance measures. Abel's education in espionage was not simply technical, it was psychological. He was trained to anticipate suspicion, to recognize curiosity in others, and to manipulate perception in subtle ways. Once deployed to the United States, Abel's life became a study in balance. He had to maintain the appearance of an ordinary citizen while executing extraordinary operations. His days were filled with routines that made him seem mundane. Visits to cafes, walking along familiar streets, purchasing ordinary items. Yet each movement was calculated to serve his mission. His preference for Coca Cola, a detail that might seem trivial, was part of a broader understanding of human behavior. By adopting habits that reflected social norms, he avoided standing out, but unknowingly created a predictable pattern that would later be observed and analyzed. The United States of the early 1950s was a society in flux. Cities were rebuilding, suburbs were expanding, and citizens were adjusting to post-war life. Amid this backdrop, the Soviet Union sought to gather intelligence on American military developments, scientific advances, and technological innovations. Every piece of information carried enormous strategic value. The FBI, for its part, was tasked with protecting national security in an era of unprecedented risk. Agents studied the movements of individuals, documented patterns, and assessed behaviors that could indicate espionage. Abel's brilliance lay in his mastery of routine. He understood that intelligence work often depended on patience rather than audacity. While many spies might rely on flashy operations, he knew that the real advantage came from blending into ordinary life and using predictability as camouflage. However, human nature has a way of leaving traces. Even the most disciplined agent has preferences, and habits formed for comfort can become markers for observation. Abel's fondness for a particular diner and his consistent choice of a Coca Cola became precisely that. The FBI's counterintelligence strategy relied on turning these ordinary patterns into extraordinary opportunities. Agents stationed themselves discreetly around Abel's known locations. They observed the precise timing of his movements, the interactions with those he trusted, and the items he carried. The diner, a place that seemed innocuous to anyone else, became a stage on which the intricate dance of observation and counterintelligence played out. Every sip of soda, every glance toward the door, every subtle shift in posture was recorded and analyzed. It was through these cumulative details that the FBI began to understand Abel's methods, routines, and operational network. The psychology behind this type of surveillance is remarkable. Intelligence work is not merely about technology or confrontation. It is about understanding decision-making, predicting behavior, and exploiting consistency. Abel's preference for Coca Cola, repeated over time, provided the FBI with a temporal and spatial anchor, a moment in his routine that could reliably be observed. This created a framework within which agents could anticipate interactions, identify meetings, and capture evidence without raising suspicion. The mundane became extraordinary. A simple beverage transformed into a linchpin of one of the most famous espionage operations in American history. Through patient observation, the FBI documented Abel's covert exchanges. Packages that appeared innocuous were tracked meticulously. The agents coordinated their surveillance, ensuring that every movement was captured from multiple angles. Each photograph, handwritten note, and recorded observation contributed to a larger picture of Abel's activities. The operation demonstrated the delicate interplay between human observation and operational discipline. It was not technology that led to his capture, but the application of psychological insight, attention to detail, and relentless patience. Abel's arrest, conducted without incident, reflected the culmination of months of careful planning. Agents ensured that every potential risk was mitigated, that evidence remained intact, and that Abel's network remained unaware of the operation. The moment he was escorted into custody, the strategy of observation had succeeded. The intelligence gathered in those months would prove invaluable, not only for understanding Abel's activities, but also for revealing the broader network of Soviet operatives in the United States. The trial that followed highlighted the sophistication of both Abel and Soviet espionage. The courtroom became a window into a hidden world of coded messages, secret communications, and ordinary objects repurposed for clandestine activity. Abel's demeanor reflected his training: calm, calculated, and precise. He navigated questioning with composure, revealing nothing that could compromise himself or his contacts. Observers were able to glimpse the subtlety and discipline required to operate as a spy in the heart of a rival nation. The Cold War was not merely fought in international summits or on the pages of policy documents. It was fought in cafes, on city streets, and within the routines of ordinary life. Abel's story exemplifies this reality. It demonstrates that espionage relies as much on understanding human behavior and psychology as it does on advanced technology. Habits, patterns, and preferences, no matter how minor, can become tools for observation or vulnerabilities for exposure. The simplest acts can have profound consequences. The story did not end with conviction. Abel's later exchange for Francis Gary Powers, an American pilot captured over Soviet territory, underscores the strategic interconnectedness of espionage. Individual operatives were not isolated actors. Their fates influenced international diplomacy, global politics, and national security. Abel's life, his routines, and even the choices that seemed inconsequential contributed to outcomes that reached far beyond a single city or courtroom. Even in modern intelligence work, the lessons of Abel's capture remain relevant. Despite advances in surveillance technology, digital communication, and global networks, the observation of human behavior, attention to routines, and recognition of patterns continue to be fundamental tools for intelligence agencies. Abel's story is a testament to the enduring importance of patience, insight, and the careful study of human nature. It illustrates how the extraordinary can emerge from the ordinary, and how the most seemingly trivial actions can shape historical events. The early years of the Cold War were defined by a tense uncertainty that gripped nations, citizens, and intelligence agencies alike. World War II had ended only a few years prior, leaving behind a landscape of political instability and rapid technological advancement. In this environment, the United States and the Soviet Union emerged as superpowers with opposing ideologies, each intent on securing global influence. Nuclear weapons added a terrifying dimension to the geopolitical struggle, making espionage a matter of national survival. Intelligence work became a vital component of strategy, and operatives like Rudolf Abel were deployed to gather information, assess threats, and transmit knowledge across continents. Soviet intelligence operations were sophisticated and far-reaching. Operatives were trained in tradecraft that combined psychological insight, meticulous observation, and practical skills designed to avoid detection. They relied on ordinary routines to conceal extraordinary missions, embedding themselves into communities as artists, students, or businessmen. Abel exemplified this approach. His life in New York City appeared ordinary. He walked the streets, shopped in markets, and visited cafes as any other citizen would. Yet behind this ordinary facade lay a mind constantly assessing, calculating, and executing complex operations designed to extract secrets without leaving traces. Abel's preparation for espionage involved rigorous mental training. He was taught to anticipate suspicion, interpret small gestures, and manage social interactions with precision. Intelligence work is often less about confrontation and more about observation, patience, and the subtle exploitation of human behavior. Abel mastered the art of blending in while maintaining the capability to carry out sensitive missions. He understood that human habits, even those considered insignificant, could reveal vulnerabilities. His choice of diner, his routine purchase of Coca Cola, and the careful handling of packages were all behaviors that allowed him to maintain normalcy while pursuing his objectives. The United States, aware of potential infiltration, developed counterintelligence measures that relied heavily on observation. Agents documented behaviors, patterns, and interactions, seeking clues that might indicate espionage. In a world where a single misstep could jeopardize national security, the FBI trained operatives to notice subtle deviations from normal behavior. This training emphasized patience, precision, and the ability to connect seemingly unrelated actions into a coherent picture. Abel's predictable habits provided exactly the type of opportunity the FBI needed to monitor a sophisticated operative without tipping him off. Observation was only one component of the FBI's approach. Agents coordinated surveillance across multiple locations, balancing discretion with comprehensive coverage. Some positioned themselves within the diner, appearing as ordinary patrons, while others observed from outside, blending into the urban landscape. Each movement Abel made was noted, from the moment he entered the diner to the precise way he placed a package on the table. The ordinary environment, combined with Abel's consistent routines, created a stage where intelligence work could proceed with minimal risk of detection. Human psychology played a central role in the operation. Abel's reliance on routine was a reflection of natural human behavior. Even trained operatives seek comfort in consistency. By exploiting this tendency, the FBI transformed ordinary habits into a foundation for surveillance. The simple act of ordering Coca Cola became a temporal marker, a reliable cue around which agents could structure observation. This approach demonstrates a timeless principle of intelligence work. Understanding people and their behavior often yields more reliable results than relying solely on technology or confrontation. Months of patient surveillance eventually provided the FBI with the evidence needed to act. Abel conducted covert exchanges with contacts, placing packages that appeared innocuous in public spaces. Each interaction was monitored from multiple angles, recorded and analyzed. Agents worked in concert, ensuring that every detail contributed to a comprehensive understanding of his activities. The operation required discipline, foresight, and a thorough understanding of human behavior. It was not a story of dramatic confrontation, but one of meticulous observation, strategic timing, and careful planning. The arrest itself was executed quietly. Abel, calm and composed, did not resist. His capture was the result of human insight rather than force, demonstrating the power of patience, observation, and strategic thinking. The intelligence gathered in the months of surveillance revealed not only Abel's methods, but also the broader network of Soviet operatives active in the United States. His subsequent trial exposed the intricate workings of espionage, including coded messages, clandestine meetings, and the use of everyday objects for covert purposes. Abel's story reaches beyond individual actions. His eventual exchange for Francis Gary Powers highlights the interconnected nature of Cold War espionage. Operatives influence global events in ways that extended far beyond the immediate context of their missions. Abel's routines, choices, and behaviors became part of a larger narrative in which espionage, diplomacy, and international politics intersected. His capture and exchange demonstrate that intelligence work can have consequences on a global scale, where even small, seemingly ordinary actions shape history. The Cold War itself was defined by this blend of ordinary and extraordinary. Citizens went about daily life unaware of the web of spies and agents operating among them. Intelligence agencies navigated this environment with patience, insight, and adaptability, exploiting human behavior to uncover hidden threats. Abel's capture serves as a powerful example of these principles in action. A simple habit, repeated consistently over time, became a tool for observation, a window into a hidden world, and ultimately a pathway to justice. Even decades later, the lessons of Abel's capture remain relevant. While surveillance technologies and communication networks have evolved dramatically, the fundamental principles of intelligence remain rooted in human behavior. Patterns, routines, and preferences continue to provide critical insight. The story illustrates that patience, observation, and understanding human psychology are indispensable tools for intelligence work, transcending the era in which the events took place. Coca Cola, a symbol of American life, becomes a recurring motif in this narrative. The beverage, mundane to anyone outside the operation, demonstrates the interplay between ordinary routines and extraordinary outcomes. Abel's preference provided the FBI with a fixed point around which they could structure their surveillance. It illustrates a broader truth about espionage. The tools of intelligence are not limited to sophisticated gadgets or coded communications. Everyday objects, carefully observed behavior, and subtle routines can hold the key to uncovering hidden truths. The exchange of able for powers was conducted with precision and secrecy. The event at Glienicke Bridge, later immortalized in photographs and Cold War histories, symbolized the high stakes of espionage. It reflected the calculated interplay between individual actions and international strategy. Abel's journey from ordinary citizen to skilled operative, from arrested spy to exchanged agent, underscores the complexity of the human element in intelligence operations. It highlights how individual choices, consistent behaviors, and small actions can ripple outward, shaping historical outcomes in ways that are both surprising and profound. Abel's story did not end with the exchange. Returning to the Soviet Union, he became a living example of the value of patience, discipline, and meticulous tradecraft. His capture and subsequent release reinforced lessons about the delicate balance between operational security and human behavior. Soviet intelligence analysts studied his case carefully, examining how a single predictable habit, a preference for a beverage, could provide critical insight to the opposition. Abel himself continued to train and advise new operatives, emphasizing the importance of observation, consistency, and adaptability in the field. The U-2 incident that precipitated Abel's exchange also had far-reaching consequences for the United States and the Soviet Union. It intensified distrust, hardened diplomatic positions, and heightened the urgency of intelligence gathering. For American operatives, the incident illustrated the fragility of secrecy in an era dominated by emerging technology and global surveillance. Each side recognized that individual actions could shift the balance of power, and that the human element remained the most unpredictable and influential factor in intelligence work. Back in the United States, the FBI's success in identifying, surveilling, and ultimately apprehending Abel became a benchmark for future counterintelligence operations. Agents reviewed every detail of the case, from the careful observation of Abel's routines to the subtle exploitation of human habits. The Coca Cola operation, while seemingly simple, exemplified a foundational principle. Effective intelligence relies not solely on technology or brute force, but on understanding behavior, anticipating choices, and acting with precision. It became a case study in training programs, illustrating how patience, diligence, and careful attention to seemingly mundane details can unravel even the most sophisticated espionage network. Abel's trial, although now behind him, continued to resonate as a lesson in the interplay between law, espionage, and diplomacy. Courtroom proceedings revealed the hidden infrastructure of spycraft, coded communications, covert exchanges, and the disciplined routines that allowed operatives to operate undetected. Every question asked by prosecutors and every answer given by Abel provided insight into the broader Cold War intelligence landscape. Observers realized that espionage was not merely a battle of ideology or military might. It was a contest of psychology, observation, and subtle influence. The broader cultural and historical impact of Abel's story also cannot be understated. His capture inspired films, books, and documentaries that sought to illuminate the secretive world of Cold War espionage. These portrayals emphasize the tension, the stakes, and the extraordinary skill required to operate in plain sight. They revealed how ordinary objects, routines, and human behaviors could become the keys to understanding a hidden world. The Coca Cola bottle, once a symbol of American consumer culture, now carried the weight of intrigue, reminding audiences that history often turns on the smallest, most human of actions. In the years that followed, Abel's experience informed discussions about intelligence ethics, operational security, and the balance between surveillance and civil liberties. Analysts considered the moral and practical implications of monitoring everyday life, weighing the necessity of vigilance against the risk of encroaching on normal routines. Abel's case became an archetype of how ordinary circumstances, dining at a familiar diner, ordering the same beverage, interacting predictably with the environment, could intersect with high-stakes espionage. The Cold War itself continued to evolve, shaped by technological advancements, diplomatic maneuvering, and countless individual actions like Abel's. Spycraft expanded beyond the streets of New York, encompassing satellites, cryptography, and sophisticated electronic surveillance. Yet, despite the rise of complex technology, the core lesson endured. Human behavior remained central to intelligence work. Patterns, habits, and seemingly trivial choices provided windows into intentions, affiliations, and hidden operations. Abel's story, while historical, served as a timeless reminder that even in an age of machines and signals, the most critical intelligence often comes from understanding people. For modern audiences, the narrative offers multiple insights. It highlights the importance of observation, patience, and subtlety in achieving strategic goals. It demonstrates that extraordinary outcomes often emerge from ordinary circumstances, and that diligence in the small details can yield transformative results. Abel's capture and the subsequent international exchange underscore how interconnected individual actions, national security, and global events can be. The Cold War, with all its secrecy and tension, was shaped as much by human choices as by ideology or weaponry. Moreover, Abel's story challenges common perceptions about espionage. Spies are often imagined as cinematic figures equipped with gadgets and codes, moving through dramatic scenarios. In reality, much of the work relies on careful attention to the mundane, repeated routines, predictable behaviors, and disciplined habits. Abel's choice of beverage, the times he visited a diner, the way he handled packages, all of these human elements provided the leverage needed to unravel a sophisticated spy network. It reminds us that history is not only determined by grand strategies and policies, but also by the small, consistent actions of individuals. The human dimension of Abel's espionage also serves as a lens through which to understand intelligence work today. Contemporary counterintelligence continues to rely on pattern recognition, psychological insight, and careful observation, now augmented with technology and digital monitoring. Yet the principles remain the same: understanding the people behind the actions, predicting behavior, and recognizing that ordinary moments often conceal extraordinary significance. Abel's experience demonstrates the enduring relevance of these lessons, bridging the historical and modern worlds of espionage. Finally, the story of Rudolf Abel and the Coca Cola operation serves as a testament to the unpredictable intersections between ordinary life and global events. A seemingly trivial habit became a pivotal factor in national security. A quiet Manhattan diner transformed into a stage for high-stakes surveillance. The choices of a single individual influenced diplomatic negotiations and international outcomes. It is a narrative that captures the essence of espionage, a world in which observation, human behavior, and the mundane collide to create profound historical consequences. From Abel's careful routines to the dramatic prisoner exchange at Gleanica Bridge, the story emphasizes the intricate, human-centered nature of intelligence work. It is a reminder that the extraordinary often emerges from the ordinary, that even the smallest actions can shape global events, and that patience, insight, and meticulous observation remain timeless tools of the spy. As viewers reflect on this story, they gain a deeper appreciation for the delicate interplay between individual decisions, habits, and the far-reaching consequences of espionage in the Cold War era. This concludes the story of Rudolf Abel, a man whose life illustrates the remarkable ways in which ordinary actions intersect with extraordinary circumstances. His journey, captured in historical records, trials, and cultural memory, offers enduring lessons in vigilance, human psychology, and the art of observation. It reminds us that in the shadowy world of spies, even the most unassuming details can become instruments of strategy, shaping events in ways that resonate far beyond the immediate moment. For those captivated by tales of secrecy, strategy, and human ingenuity, Abel's story remains a profound example of the complexity and fascination of espionage. It demonstrates that understanding human behavior, noticing patterns, and valuing the ordinary can reveal truths that might otherwise remain hidden. From a simple beverage to international diplomacy, the narrative threads of Abel's life weave a compelling tapestry of intrigue, intelligence, and history that continues to captivate audiences to this day. If you want to explore more stories of espionage, intrigue, and historical secrets, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Turn on notifications to follow our deep dives into the world of spies, covert operations, and the hidden forces that shaped history. Share your thoughts in the comments and let us know which story of espionage or intelligence you would like us to uncover next. History is filled with secrets, and curiosity is the key to discovering them.